We are 39 games into the LA Clippers season, and a question that was asked before the season was, do they have too much depth? Going to be discussing that, if they need to move off anybody, and their overall big picture right now as we almost are at the halfway point on today's Locked On Clippers.
Locked On Clippers, your daily Los Angeles Clippers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yes, sir. You are locking in with the Clips. Thank you for making Locked On Clippers the first listen of your day, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by BetOnline. BetOnline is where the game starts and where you can place your bets and find podcasts and sports information. I am your host, Darian Vaziri, in my 18th season as a Clipper fan, 39 games in to my 18th season as a Clipper fan. You can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at DimeDropperPod, and of course, subscribe to my own YouTube channel, Dime Dropper, and subscribe to Locked On Clippers on YouTube. And I'll open up the discussion again for today's pin question, and that is, do the Clippers need to trade one of their players? And if so, why? One or more, I should ask. So in today's episode, going to be talking about that in segment 2, but in the first one, just going to be asking and answering the general question. Do the Clippers have too much depth? When teams tend to have so many guys where you don't really know who's going to play night to night, something gets such a luxury because obviously you have so many options, and if guys go down, you have a plethora of replacements for them. But then there's also the problem, when everyone's healthy, who plays? We're going to start with that, in fact. So, going into the season, I feared that the Clippers may have had too much depth. You heard me in the episodes before the season say it on this podcast. But, given the Clippers' history with injury, I figured it wasn't going to be a big deal, and also given my trust in Ty Lue, that he was going to be able to figure out what was needed on a particular matchup. Now, if you look at the last couple of championship teams, I'd say the Warriors are probably the most random in ways, but the last couple of championship teams, Milwaukee, Toronto, the Lakers in the bubble, they had a pretty set rotation. There were certain matchups that had guys deferring in minutes. For example, in the 2020 bubble, JaVale McGee played more in the Nuggets series against Jokic than he did against those small ball Rockets that didn't have a center. Stuff like that. But for the most part, the same guys were playing. For the Clippers, they haven't found that. Nothing close to that, in fact, so far this season. I talked about how the Clippers have one guard too many when they signed John Wall. And when they signed John Wall, I knew that given who he is and what he was brought to the Clippers to do, and that was to push the pace, have a true assist-heavy point guard whose natural position was point guard and was good at it in the NBA, and have his downhill rim pressure, in which the Clippers severely lacked. But that would push one guard out because Norman Powell is also playing. And before the season, I thought it was going to be Luke Kennard. Now you might be asking, why should he get pushed out? Well, because my naive ass thought that the Clippers were going to play wings, because that was the whole emphasis of the Clippers last season and even late in the 2021 season. And when I was at the sit down with Jerry West, I don't remember when that was, honestly. I think that may have been late last season or in the summer. But Jerry West said that the amount of wing players, long 6'7", 6 to 6'9" wing players that the Clippers had assembled was going to make it so hard for teams on offense because the Clippers are going to have the ability to switch so many different guys onto so many different players on the opposing team. So I figured on the regular basis, if everyone's healthy, he's going to play when Kawhi or Paul are out or load managing, but Luke Kennard was going to be the guy that got the least amount of minutes of those 11. And in the beginning of the season, the first couple of games, it was not Luke Kennard. It was Terrence Mann. And Ty Lue was asked about that. He was asked about Luke Kennard and how is he gonna find minutes given the additions of other guys, and he said, "No, Luke's playing." He was very, firm with that stance that Luke's playing, and I'm happy to see Luke playing as a fan, of course. But then it became Terrence Mann to start the season. That was the odd man out. Getting minimal minutes on opening night. He didn't really play much against the Lakers, and I was getting a little frustrated with that. And then slowly but surely, it has now become Robert Covington. Now, the Clippers didn't really know because when Kawhi Leonard was out for so long and Paul George was out, and at times they played with both of them out, then you can play these different guys. Everybody gets their minutes. But it's when everyone's healthy, and that's great that the Clippers are finding this out. It's great who's playing and who's not. And right now, the answer to the question is yes, the Clippers have too much depth. Do you know why? Because Ty Lue right now has not figured out the right guys to use and how much to use them. That's the simple truth in my opinion. You can disagree, and if you do, I would love to hear why in the comments. But Ty Lue has not leaned into the approach that Jerry West said in that meeting, or whatever you want to call it, that sit down he had with season ticket holders and fans. Because Terrence Mann is now getting minimal minutes in favor of 3-guard lineups, and Robert Covington has been exiled to the bench, and he is not playing at all, really, in many of these games. He's not really playing, let's be real. Not to mention the Clippers aren't playing a backup big either. So they already don't have a backup big, and they're leaning into 3-guard heavy lineups off the bench. Just not really what you expected. Now, I want to read off the minutes to you guys, and I want you to tell me what you think in the comments. Paul George is leading the Clippers in minutes right now as expected with 34.6, which I checked before this episode. That's about 1 over his career average. You'd like to see that number drop 1 or 2 minutes to like 32 or 33, but I'm not really complaining. That's about standard for your star. Marcus Morris Sr., he has played 36 games out of 39. He has started in all 36 of them, and he's averaging 30 minutes per game. That's the second highest on the team, tied with Zoo. Now, Zoo has been the second best player on the team that has played at least 20 games, because Kawhi is honestly starting to make his way into that, clearly a top 2 player on this team this season argument. But Zubats, given the totality of the season, has been the second best player. You can even argue the first, but probably not at this point, the way Paul George has kind of started to play more games and string them together. But Zubats has played 37 games. He's only missed 2. He has started all 37 of them, and he's averaging a career high 29.9, so 30 minutes per game. I love to see that because I always said that if Ivica Zubats averages 30 minutes per game, he will average a double-double. And that's exactly what's happening right now. He's averaging 10 points and 11 boards, and yes, it's his career high in minutes. So happy with that. Honestly, though, I think he could still get 31, 32 minutes. He's young. So I think he can give Zoo an extra minute or 2 there. Kawhi Leonard, his minutes average is rapidly changing, and it's now 29 minutes a game. That number is probably going to go up to around 31, 32 by season's end, and you love to see that. You absolutely love to see that. So no complaints there. But on the Marcus Morris point, that's a lot. I don't think he should be getting the second most minutes on the team or tied for it. Eventually, when Kawhi is back to his 100% fitness in terms of them. Well, no. Kawhi is back to 100% fitness in terms of playing minutes. I think it's just a matter of the average kicking in and getting to 30. But Marcus Morris playing the most out of anyone besides Paul, Zoo, and Kawhi. You let me know what you think there, honestly. Reggie Jackson is the next guy, 5th most minutes on the team. He's also been incredibly available again. 36 games played. He's only missed 3. He has started in every single one of those games. He's averaging 29 minutes per game. Given the way he's played, that's a lot for me. And it's obviously because he starts like the first 7 minutes of each half, so that's a given 14 right there. But then he's playing another additional 14, really. So I don't know about that. Norman Powell is averaging 25 minutes a game. He obviously comes off the bench. He started the first 5 games of the season, but now he's been off the bench. He's been great. He's averaging more points than Reggie Jackson, and he's playing less minutes, and he's just the better player. So I think that's got to change. obviously, you've heard me on, you listen to this podcast, I hope, and you know that Reggie Jackson and Marcus Morris, but particularly Reggie Jackson, has gotten way too many minutes this season and gets too many minutes in general. Ty loves him. John Wall, 22 minutes, that's about right. I'd say maybe it's going to start decreasing a little bit if he doesn't start playing better, but that's about standard. Luke Kennard, 22 minutes, that's right around what you expect. Nico Batum, 21. It's probably been going up of late since he's been playing so well. I'd say you'd like that number around 23, 24. And then Terrence Mann is getting 21 minutes, the lowest of all those guys I just named. That's just, Terrence Mann should get at least 25 minutes every game. I stand by that. And Robert Covington is only averaging 15. And a lot of DNPs. Robert Covington's played in 21 games this season, and he hasn't been injured for those 18. He literally hasn't gotten played. And coming up, going to be talking about if the Clippers need to move one of these guys to make Ty Lue's job easier. Going to be talking about who that could be and if they should, coming up. BetOnline.net is your number one source for sports betting info, stats, news, and analysis. Get the latest odds and trends for every professional and amateur league out there, from pro football to college bowl season, and it is bowl season, to basketball and soccer. We've got it all at betonline.net. If you love sports podcasts, you can even find those at betonline.net as well. And on Wednesday, a good 3-4 games in the NBA, I'm going to go with the Indiana Pacers. They're plus 7.5 at Philadelphia. And considering the way they've been playing lately, we just saw both of these teams. I think Indiana could make that game close or even sneak in a win. They're plus 7.5. The money line is plus 250. So I'd put my bet on the Indiana Pacers. Just head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more. Bet online, where the game starts. All right. Let's talk about the roster. Should the Clippers move anybody? I don't want to see anyone moved. I want to start by saying that. I do not want to see anyone moved. Because I like all of these players so much. I love Brandon Boston, who's not even playing, and he's such a talented player. I love the brewmaster, Amir Coffey, who's also a great player that would play for a number of teams, would start down the hall, honestly, in my opinion. And he's not getting minutes because of the depth. He's the 12th man. Brandon Boston being the 13th alongside maybe Moses Brown. And don't even get me started on the Moussa Diabate situation in the G League. I also saw an article today, a rumor from Jake L. Fisher on Twitter. So, I don't know too much about his history with credibility and whatnot. You can tell me if you know more about him. But he said apparently the Clippers are looking to make a splash at the deadline and look for a big that can switch. It's funny because they have one. They have one in the G League. And that's Moussa Diabate. Bigs that can switch 1 to 5 and are mobile like that do not just grow on trees and are on the market, available. Unless you give up a real haul. And plus, how many of them are actually good offensive players too? You know what I'm saying? Just getting a big that can switch 1 to 5 and all that is a luxury in itself and very rare. A real guy that can switch 1 to 5. So I don't think that the Clippers are going to make a move to get anyone big like that. Will they get a backup big, and should they? The backup bigs on the market are not so great. And I think that if they were to have gotten one, they would have done it already. If they were to go get one, they would have done it already. And I think that legitimately, and I don't think that they're that wrong for this, I don't think that they think that the Dwight Howards, the Hassan Whitesides, the guys on the market are any better than Moses. And I don't disagree with that point because they're all slow and old and not great defending the pick and roll. And that's what they want. The reason why you want to switch a big is to kill the pick and rolls for other teams. Moussa Diabate can do that. Problem is you have him on a 2-way contract with the G League team. So, yikes. I honestly don't even think the Clippers need a backup big. I think if they need to play Moses Brown in spurt minutes, they can do that. And then Moussa should get called up more. But I wouldn't mind if they traded one of the guards for a backup big. Why? Because that would allow Ty Lue to play Terrence Mann more by force. Because he has no choice. He doesn't have the guard. He doesn't have one of the guards that he's been playing. Should they trade Norman Powell? Absolutely not. Should we trade Luke Kennard? Absolutely not. Should we trade John Wall? Well, I love John Wall. I've been, I think, kinder to him this season than most. But it goes back to the reason, or the question I asked when the Clippers first got John Wall. They already have 2 guards that are going to come off the bench. Luke Kennard and Norman Powell. You want a third guard under 6'5", not all these guys are going to play, and if you do, you're going to be small. And that's exactly what has happened. It's exactly what's happened. It reminds me of last year's Nets with Patty Mills and Seth Curry playing alongside Kyrie Irving. So, I'm not saying the Clippers should trade John Wall, but if they were to trade somebody from the bench, can they even trade John Wall? I don't even know. I have to look at the logistics and the cap and all that, and if he can get traded after just signing the mid-level exception. I would hope that either one of John or Reggie will just end up being, when everyone's healthy, an enthusiasm guy on the bench that doesn't play. That just is a good, right? Like what Robert Covington is being forced to do right now. Just clap and be a good teammate. Be ready when your moment comes, but you're not going to play when everyone's healthy. One of them needs to do that. Now, if John Wall plays alongside Kawhi and Paul in the starting lineup, which a lot of fans wanted to start, and in the beginning, in the preseason, I said he looks so good, I'd rather have him starting than Reggie. Honestly, I think the game could open up for him a little bit more. But the Clippers are a half-court team, and John Wall isn't great in the half-court, especially off the ball. And do we really want the ball in John Wall's hands at this stage of his career over Kawhi and Paul? Goes back to exactly what I said before the season started. Let's look at the assist numbers for the Clippers right now. Paul George, 5.3. He leads the team. John Wall, only a decimal behind him, 5.2. So given he only plays 22 minutes a game, 5 assists is pretty good. Reggie Jackson, our starting point guard, who's playing 6 more minutes a game than John, actually 7 if you round up, is averaging 4 assists a game, so even less. So I don't think, like, the value in Reggie Jackson is having him alongside Kawhi and Paul, and he's a better spot-up shooter than John. Absolutely. He's a better fit in that starting lineup alongside them. I don't disagree. But I'm down to experiment with John Wall starting, taking Reggie out of the starting, taking him out of the rotation entirely if it means more Terrence Mann, more Robert Covington, especially Terrence Mann. Because what he brings to the table in terms of hustle, in terms of his switchability, and just his athleticism, he moves without the ball too. He crashes the offensive glass. He's one of those guys you need to win chips, and he guards the best players on other teams and takes it personally, makes it a challenge, or takes that challenge, I should say. So do the Clippers need to make a move? The answer, in my opinion, right now is no. They don't need to make a move if Ty Lue can get it right. Should they? Probably, to save Ty Lue from himself, because he's not making good decisions right now. And there's just 3 guards. Those 3, John Wall, Norman, and Kennard, they all have a case to play because they're all really solid players. I know some might disagree on John Wall. I still think he's a good player. I still think he brings things to the table that no other Clipper does. But Norman Powell and Luke Kennard are just too good, are just better offensively right now to me. And I'm looking at it from a defense-first lens as usual. So, speaking of a defense-first lens, the Clippers, their defense has been slipping of late, but they've still been one of the better teams in the league on that end defensively. Going to be looking at the big picture going forward in terms of championship, the initial goal, and evaluating it, looking at the standings, doing all that good stuff as we round out coming up. Okay, so the good part about these non-post-game episodes is I kind of get a chance to look at the big picture and talk about that with you. And right now, I would say it's been a roller coaster of a season, as most Clipper seasons are. Before the season, I'm on here talking about 60 wins. Our depth is so great. We'll be fine. I do think our depth is great. The people that actually clown the Clippers and saying, I thought they were the deepest team in the league. How do you think that a team is 21-18 when the coach isn't having that great of a season in terms of lineup decisions, and Paul George has missed 10 games and Kawhi Leonard has missed 23 games, and we're still over 500? That's because of the depth, because it's been mismanaged as well. So Clippers are deep. The 60-win thing was ambitious, obviously, on my part, but I thought Ty would be smarter in terms of playing certain guys more. But I also thought Kawhi wouldn't miss 23 games before the midway point of the season. So 60 wins, that was just me being just took over on this pod, being an excited Clipper fan for this upcoming season and wanting to see something I'd never seen from the Clippers, and that's a 60-win season. But that dream is dead. Even though it's not mathematically dead yet, the Clippers would have to go, 39 and 4 for the remainder of the season. So that's not happening. Remember, my new target is 52 wins. I looked at most of the teams in NBA history that have won rings, and the number that they seem to either have as many or exceed is 52 wins, and the Clippers need to go 31-13 the rest of the season for that. So we'll monitor that progress. But as the season's gone on, you can recall I was really angry after the 2 OKC losses in Oklahoma because the way I saw it was the Clippers had such an easy start to the season in terms of scheduling. They should have gone like 8-2 in those first 10 games. And when they didn't do that, well, you're going to play better teams after. And Kawhi Leonard and Paul George have not been fully healthy for those. So that's why they find themselves where they are. That being said, they still could have a better record than this. And I think Ty Lue hasn't done them any favors with the stuff I've talked about in the last couple of episodes. The fact that a guy like Terrence Mann is getting less minutes than Norman Powell, Reggie Jackson, and Luke Kennard, and John Wall, and he's a better defender than all of them. Because defense first has to be the approach. Marcus Morris also doesn't play better defense than Terrence. Shaking my head. But anyways, the thing about this Western Conference right now is that it's one of the most even conferences that I've seen in my life, and definitely in a 30-team NBA, gotta be at, you know what, it's still not even halfway through the season, or it's around halfway through the season, so I'm not going to talk about the season as a whole, but as it stands, the parity in the West is crazy. The Clippers are 21-18, and I'm recording this on January 4th, 2023. The Clippers are 3 games above 500 and in the 6th seed in the West. The Sacramento Kings are 4 games above 500 and in the 5 seed. So that's, neck and neck right there. But the Dallas Mavericks, given Luka Doncic's tear that he's been on, have won 7 games in a row, and they are also 16-6 in conference play, in Western Conference play. The Clippers are only 500, 11-11, and the Mavs are now 6 games over 500. So they have a little bit of a lead over the Clippers now. And New Orleans, where I just want to say, I hope Zion gets well soon and Brandon Ingram comes back soon. I think Brandon Ingram is set to come back soon, but the news came out today that Zion's going to be out for 3 weeks with a hamstring injury. And even though I don't want to sound mean out here, I think Zion's been amazing. I really actually, even though they beat us in the play-in last season, they're one of the teams in the Western Conference I actually really enjoy. I want the best for them. Their coach is a former Clipper, a starter on a 56-win Clipper team, Willie Green. So I always root. I wouldn't say always, but I like this Pelicans team. But that being said, this is a good chance for them to slip in the standings. And the Clippers could overtake them and need to. And listen, Zion is playing amazing. He should be an all-star, no doubt. But I didn't expect him to play over 70 games given his injury history. Memphis is 23-13, and Denver are 24-13 as well. So I'm sorry. Memphis is 23-13, and Denver is 24-13. So half a game difference at the top. Those are the 2 best teams in the conference. The Clippers are 4 games behind them. 3 in the win column. And I'm talking Denver here. And 5 in the loss column. And guess what? That's who they're playing next on Thursday on TNT. And that's going to be a big game because it's in front of everyone. Nikola Jokic has been on an absolute tear recently. And if I'm being real, I know they've been shooting decently from 3 and their offense is pretty good. I shouldn't say decently. I feel like they've been shooting well from 3. The Clippers may need to just go with a double on Jokic early and just force the ball out of his hands because he still will get the team open shots. But if Zoo gets in foul trouble in this game, the Clippers are going to be really in a lot of trouble. However, if you recall the game against the Nuggets last season in LA in which the Clippers beat them, it was a lot of switch everything, Nico Batum, Terrence Mann, Robert Covington style. So if they can do that with Kawhi healthy, because Kawhi, I hope he comes back. He had the non-COVID related illness. I hope he's ready to go. Maybe that's the approach they lean into. But I do think that Zoo needs to stay out of foul trouble, so I think they should throw some doubles at Jokic when Zoo's in, just to prevent Zoo from having to go one-on-one. Even though I think Zoo's a great defender, I don't think he's as good one-on-one in the post defending. I think a lot of guys aren't that good at that anymore because they don't play against it much. But in pick and roll, Zoo is, top-notch, better than people think. It's going to be a really tough game. The Nuggets are playing good basketball. They've won 7 out of the last 10 games. Nikola Jokic is playing at an MVP level yet again for the third straight season. He's now averaging 25.6 points per game, 11 rebounds, and 9.5 assists. I'm going to repeat that again. 9.5 assists for a center. He might end up being the first center to average a triple-double with assists. The reason why I say assists is because there's no statistical evidence that Wilt Chamberlain did not average a 10-block season in 1962, or in many seasons, honestly. And same goes for Bill Russell. Because with the pace of the game back then, you'd be thinking, there's no way, dude. But the pace of the game back then, that's why they put up so many points and rebounds. When teams are shooting 100 shots a game, and there's no three-point line, and everything's in the paint, and Bill Russell and Wilt are playing over 40 minutes, they might just get 9 or 10 blocks. I know they had 10-block games. There's newspaper evidence of that. So, just saying. But statistically, in front of us all, Jokic could be the first to average a triple-double, which would be insane. Jamal Murray, who I know that name is not one you want to hear as a Clipper fan because it gives us PTSD from the bubble. He is averaging 18 points a game. Remember, he's come back from a torn ACL as well, just like Kawhi. He has played 30 games this season, though, and he is getting back into the swing of things. He's averaging 32 minutes a game, 18 points. Aaron Gordon is having one of the best seasons, if not the best, of his career right now. He's averaging 17 points a game and 7 boards, but he's shooting 58% from the field and 37% from deep. So the Denver Nuggets, as a team, are shooting 40% from 3 this season. So the Clippers going to have to be careful. It's going to be a good game. Hopefully Paul George can play. The report is that he doesn't know yet. He's going to give it a go and practice and see how it is. I wouldn't expect him to play personally, especially with the back-to-back. And that's another question. The back-to-back is Friday against the Timberwolves, who haven't been playing very well recently. Do the Clippers play Kawhi against Denver, or do they play him against Minnesota? It might be a decent idea to just take the L against Denver without Kawhi and then play him against Minnesota and really go for the win. It's just going to be tough, especially if Paul George doesn't play in either game. Paul George absolutely shouldn't play a back-to-back, though. It'd be nice if they can maybe stagger him if Paul's healthy, but I don't know. The point is the Clippers' schedule is getting tougher, and it's just looking really tough. But Kawhi Leonard and Paul George, until I hear that Paul George is out for an extended period of time, I should believe that he's day-to-day, and Kawhi Leonard is healthy and playing good basketball. So I still believe the Clippers can still climb it up in the standings in the second half of the season to get a top 3 seed. And if they get a top 3 seed, they can win it all. I know they can. But that top 3 seed is important. That needs chemistry. That means rhythm. That means Tyler needs to make better decisions. That means maybe a move should be made. But that mainly means Kawhi and Paul need to stay healthy. And yeah, hopefully the Clippers lean into the identity of the team, which should be wing heavy. But that's it for me tonight. Or today, whatever, in this one. You can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at DimeDropperPod. Of course, subscribe to my YouTube channel, please. Dime Dropper. That's where I do more LA sports, Clipper, and basketball content. And, of course, subscribe to Locked On Clippers. I asked a lot of questions in this episode. Comment answers to all those, but especially the first one. Do the Clippers need to make a move to save Ty Lue from himself? And if so, who should they move and why? That's all for this one. The age-old proverb continues. Go Clippers.